Good afternoon, all my beauty professionals. Today, I'm going to be demonstrating how to apply acrylic nails. So first, I want to do an acrylic overlay, which is acrylic overlaying the tip. And then the second nail is an acrylic form, also known as an acrylic nail, meaning we'll be building an acrylic nail without the nail tip. We'll be using the sticker. But first, I want to thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you for your support. God bless you. And let's get started. Okay guys, really quick, this is my table set up. Now I put a lot of extra stuff on my table just in case, I decide to do something or show you something extra. But your main materials that you need is your dapping dishes. So you could put liquid in here if you want to, but this is for my powders and my liquid is going to go here. Of course, they have the fancy kind where you can pump the liquid. In this case, I'm not doing that. I had one of those and that was a long time ago. I don't know where it is. Anyway, I have two buffers just in case I drop one or I feel like I've worn out that buffer. I have TPTs here. This is what I'm going to use to wipe off my excess acrylic liquid or any acrylic beads that I'm not going to use. Today I'm using Core Pink and Core Clear. I don't know if Young Nails has this anymore. I know they have, it's translucent pink, put it that way, and then this is clear. I have my nail resin for nail tips, and I have white nail tips and clear nail tips, although it says natural. I have 4 acrylic forms, and really I have the extra just in case I drop any, or if I mess up and I decide I want to throw it out. But this is what they look like, the stickers. Those are called nail forms. I have my monomer, Young Nails, of course, and now I've had this acrylic kit for quite some time, so it's probably going to be time for me to get a new one after this video. My acrylic brush, I think I said my primer, which is non-acid. My nail files is 150 grit and 100 grit. I usually use between 150 and 180 to etch the nail prior to applying the acrylic. Then I have my lint-free wipes, and I have Swipe, which is kind of like a nail dehydrant. So if I need to wipe off any dust and wipe it off and dry out the oils, I'll use this Swipe. Or you could use alcohol, either or. And that's it for the table setup. All right, the first thing that I would do is wash my hands, which I really did wash my hands, but now I'm sanitizing them just for demonstration purposes. And I'm going to sanitize the hand strictly for demonstration purposes, just to get it in your brain that your client should be washing their hands as well when you're doing an acrylic service. And the reason for that is to reduce oils on the nail plate so the acrylics can last longer. So all these little steps lead up to longer lasting acrylics. I'm using a 150 grit to etch the natural nail in preparation for the acrylics. And when you're doing an acrylic overlay, you etch the nail with the file first, and then you select, you should select your tips, which I didn't do in this video. I should have selected prior to recording, but you pre-select your tips that you're going to use for the fingers. You etch the nails, then you remove the dust and apply the tips. You want to remove the dust not with your fingers. You want to use lint-free wipes, some type of towel or something where you're not using the oils from your fingers. So I use resin on this, and of course on a plastic mannequin hand it's a little more difficult, but I got it on there. And if you want to know how to properly do nail tips, watch my other video, how to do nail tips, the correct applications, part 1 and part 2. In the first video, I'm giving theory about nail tips and how you properly apply them, and the different types of tips, the tips that you actually want to use when you're doing acrylic overlays. And then the second video, I'm actually demonstrating on my mom how to apply the nail tips properly. But I didn't use any acrylic in that video. So for those who have said that you cannot do nail tips with toenail clippers, well, here it is. So you cut on one side and then you clip on the other side, you bend the tip up, twist it, and it comes right off. I've been doing that for years when I didn't have tip cutters, before tip cutters became a big thing. And in this video, I actually forgot my tip cutters, so that's why I had to use my toenail clippers, but it can be done. So I'm using my 100 grit file for this because it's a little stronger. I try not to use 100 grit files on the natural nail, although you can. You just have to be gentle about it when you're etching the nail. You don't want to make holes in anyone's nails. And so I know I've said this more than once, but when you're etching the natural nails, you're etching it in the direction of the growth, which is around and downward. So you never want to go side to side. And then also, while I'm shaping this tip up, I'm going to turn it away from me, because remember, that's how your client sees their nails. So the way I have her hand now is how I see the nail, and it could be straight from my view, but when she gets in her car or he gets in his car and they look at their nails, it could be crooked. So you always want to make sure you twist the hand around. I'm removing the dust. I guess I need to shape it a little more. I'm kind of removing the shine from the plastic nail tip too, which you don't have to do technically when you're doing acrylic nails, but I just did because it's so shiny. So I just want to make sure it's going to adhere on there. And then my next step after I remove the shine off of the nail tip is I'm going to remove that dust and then apply primer, but to the natural nail area only. You're not going to apply primer on the nail tip because it will do nothing, especially if it's a corrosive primer. It could actually eat through the plastic. So you didn't see it here in this frame, but when I apply the primer, I actually took a little bit, I took the brush and dabbed it on a paper towel first to get rid of any excess, because even though that's non-acid, I still don't want it on the skin. So I have my powder in my dapping dish. I have my liquid in my dapping dish. And yeah, I think I used the translucent pink powder. I used the translucent pink powder for the acrylic overlays. But it's so, see-through that it actually looks clear. So it has like a hint of pink to it. So I'm dipping my brush in the liquid. Now when you're making your acrylic beads, the smaller you want your bead to be, the less distance you drag your brush on top of the powder. So here's where people get their acrylic beads or their brushes messed up, because they'll take their brush and dig it in the powder and drag it back. If you notice here, I'm lightly dragging across. So remember in my prior video when I spoke to you about acrylics, that free edge bead is going to be a thin one. So the thought process is thin, thick, thin. So the edge should be thin, not too thin, but it's going to be a smaller bead. Your middle stress point area will always be thicker. So that bead is thick. And then your cuticle area bead will always be the smallest bead it should be, because you don't want that acrylic to run under the skin and it'll flush the oils forward from underneath the eponychium. Now here's something that I'm showing you don't want to do. You never want to smear monomer around the client's cuticle, underneath on their hyponychium under the nail plate. You never want to smash down on the bead with extra monomer, because what it's doing is it's watering down your acrylic, which means it won't last as long. It makes it easier to break, and it can cause sensitivity to the acrylic from your clients. So you never want to do that. A lot of nail shops do that. They'll take their big wet monomer acrylic brush full of monomer and smear it all on the client's skin, and you just don't want to do that. So I'm focusing on the middle of the nail. Now, I don't know if you were paying attention here, but the first bead was thin on the tip, and I placed it in the middle. I patted side to side and pushed it up towards the stress area. And then what I do is I flatten my brush and pull it over the free edge. So middle, pat side to side and push towards the stress point, and then flatten my brush and swipe it over the free edge. Second bead, place it in the middle. It's going to be thicker. That's your stress area. That's your curvature of the nail. I'm going to pat it side to side as I'm pushing it up the nail towards the cuticle. Then I'm going to flatten my brush and I'm going to swipe that over the first area that I applied acrylic over my free edge. So that's how you get it all to mesh together. It's not going to be just 3 separate areas that you would see. You actually see one smooth acrylic nail. So now in the cuticle area, you would angle the client's fingers downward as you're patting it side to side, but you're actually angling downward to keep the acrylic liquid from going under the eponychium and bringing those oils forward, and from causing any sensitivity to your client's skin. And then you're flattening the brush and bringing it all the way forward over the free edge. And then wherever else you see may need filling in, which I saw here on the side, I just made a tiny little bead. So real quick with the beads, I don't think I finished explaining. When you make your beads, you take your brush, you dip it in the liquid, you place it on the powder, lightly drag. The smaller you want your bead, the less you drag across. A medium bead, you do it to the center of your dapping dish. A larger bead, you go from end to end, and that's how you get a larger bead. So now I'm going to add gold glitter. So this was a basic application of acrylic on a nail tip. Now we're doing a basic, I don't know, you could say nail art or nail design. You want to do glitter. So I did 3 scoops of glitter because remember, it's supposed to be for every set of powder that you have in your dapping dish. What is it? It's 3 parts. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's actually 1 part to 3 parts powder. So I did that a little backwards, but that's all right because I had a lot of powder in there. So it came out good. So I'm tapping the acrylic to see if it's dry yet. And in the meantime, while that is drying, I'm etching the next nail for the next overlay. But what you're listening for when you tap that nail is a crisp clicking sound, and that's how you know your nail is dry. And yeah, as you can see, the twilight zone is happening as usual. It was worse than this, and I decided to keep that in the video so you guys can see a little bit of what I go through when I am preparing videos for you guys. I should say video classes really for you guys to learn, because these things happen to me in real life all the time, literally. So sometimes I don't want to edit out the mistakes that I make because you need to see some of the struggle that I go through. It's not always perfect. It's not perfect at all, really. Okay, so I'm gluing the nail tip on. And this one, I cut it at an angle just to show you how you can, you know, shape your nail tips in ways that you want. I remember one time I did a full set like that, where the tips were like angled at a sharp point on one side. And they were really pretty, but my student came back and I had to buff underneath to soften them up because she said she had scratched her husband. And I think she had a baby at the time. So, but I'm just angling the toenail clippers at a point, lift it up, twist it off, and then I'm gonna file it to get that shape in there with my 100 grit file. Remove some of that shine there. And on this one, I applied the gold glitter on the tip. And I really didn't do a sharp smile line. Next time I'll show you guys how to do smile lines. I didn't think about it this time. I'm so sorry about that. And I forgot to tell you, this is going to be a 2-part video because there was so much information. I didn't want to do like a 40-minute video. So I'm applying the primer. Same thing. I'm doing the same thing. And this time I'm not making huge beads, remember, because I'm only doing it on the tip. I'm not going to be doing the gold glitter on the entire nail. I'm actually going to be doing clear for the other beads to go over the glitter. So you do your stress point bead, which is a little bigger, flatten your brush, brush it over the gold glitter. And the reason why you do that, especially if you're doing the whole nail glitter, so you really would do thinner beads when you're doing like a color, and then you encapsulate or cap it in a clear or translucent pink, so that when you're filing with the electric file or hand filing, you are not filing your glitter off. So you're not working against yourself. So this is the fun part. Not really, but this is the part where you are conversating, I guess, with your client, because this is the most work. And really, when you're applying acrylics, I think I've said this before also, you want to apply them well enough where you're not spending a lot of your time filing. So I tapped them, I checked them, they came out beautiful. You guys, make sure you share your thoughts on this. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Bye.
Come here, you wild buck.